Okay, we're going to be taking a look at the game Louisbourg 1758, published by Worthington and designed by I think it's the father-son team of Grant and Mike Wylie. But before we look at Louisbourg itself, I think it might be interesting to look at the background of where this game came from. Let's take a look at that. Okay, going back in time now to 1972. I was playing a lot of hex and counter games, mainly by Avalon Hill and SBI. And I was walking down Bank Street one time in Ottawa, came to a game shop called Crazy Eddie's, and this game, Quebec 1759, was in the window, which really freaked me out because here was a Canadian subject, Canadian history. I said, I got to take a look at this thing. Looking at the box, I had no way of knowing what was inside because the box only had this really neat, clever graphic on the cover. I looked at it and said, well, okay, Quebec 1759, this is cool. Although I knew that the illustration did not show soldiers of that period. But anyway, I brought it home. Long story short, it was the first block war game that I'd ever seen. And I remember in those days, we were playing those hex and counter games with half-inch little cardboard counters, and it was kind of cool to see these wooden block counters. The game was simple. You could teach it to a newbie in 10-15 minutes, get playing, and you could finish a game in less than an hour. And of course it had the hidden aspect where you did not know the exact strength of the enemy units. I thought it was a real cool introductory game. The company back then was called Gamma 2 Games, and they issued various editions of the game over the years. There was this edition, which was a smaller bookcase edition, and then later on there was this Quebec 1759 by Columbia. They had changed the name of the company by then, and really cool artwork. I mean, I really like the artwork on that game. You can see Quebec in the background, and it's like a zoomed in view from where the Ile d'Orléans would be, as if you had a telephoto lens, because they never attacked Quebec directly like this illustration shows. They're actually attacking to the right here, near Montmorency. And this year is the 50th anniversary of that game, more or less, plus or minus a year or two. The booklet says here, copyright 2023, but I thought the game came out in 2024. I'm talking about here about Louisbourg. But this new edition will feature different counters and another map, stuff like that. So Louisbourg 1758 is derived from that original game, Quebec 1759. If you know how to play Quebec 1759, you virtually know how to play Louisbourg 1758. Now let's take a look at Louisbourg and see what's different about it. Now here's a bird's eye view of the game, and I'll try to be as steady as I can because I'm up on a chair here shooting from an iPad, and that's just to give you an overall view of the map area, and we'll zoom in closer. Now rather than try to explain all the rules to you, because they're only 8 pages long, and it's a simple game, I'd rather show you then the differences between Louisbourg 1758 and Quebec 1759. One of the biggest differences is that there are cards. They're very colorful. Blue line and with the fleur-de-lis indicates it's a French card, and of course with the British flag you've got it's a British card. So each turn, or when you begin the game, you're going to start with 3 cards in your hand, and you're going to draw, play these, and draw one new one at a time. So this is the primary difference between Quebec 1759 and Louisbourg 1758. I've yet to play it now. I've been fooling around with it solitaire. I've not played it with an opponent yet. But you can see the cards are very well done. Nice period illustrations in most cases. The text is crisp and clear. So, major difference. This one is card assisted, not card driven. Now, like Quebec 1759. It features point-to-point movement, just like the other game did. But they've made some refinements to suit the situation at Louisbourg, and I quite like what they've done. You can see some of the points are connected by a dotted line, which means it was a rough trail, and other points are connected by a bit more substantial road. And depending on which road you move on, affects the number of troops that can move by road. If on a trail, you can only move 4 units at a time on a trail, while on a more major road, you can move 8 units. So that's one important difference. Another important difference is the use of fleets. We have the large British fleet here consisting of 6 units, and I have hidden here in Louisbourg a smaller French fleet. So there is naval combat in this game, lopsided admittedly, but it is there, and one of the objectives of the British is to burst into the harbor to take Louisbourg from the water side. But to do that, they would have to neutralize the lighthouse point forces and the island battery forces. Then the fleet could burst into the harbor. They would still have to fight these 2 units, but that's one of the objectives. Another new addition is the bombardment rules. Any British units that are adjacent to Louisbourg can be artillery bombarded. That's new. That wasn't in Quebec 1759 either. So bombardment rules for Louisbourg. Now you may remember in Quebec 1759, Wolfe's British troops could more or less land by sea into any coastal area. I believe the limit was 5 units. So 5 units could land, let's say, at White Point, or if they landed at Black Rock, they'd have to do an amphibious landing and fight these 4 French blocks. But Louisbourg, they've done something pretty neat, something different. For the first turn only, and only for the British, they've added these really cool landing ships. And what the British player is going to do is he's going to put these blocks on the target areas where he wants to land. I'll show you. Now this is just an example. Let's say the British player put 2 units here with the 0 side up, 2 units here with the 0 side up, and 2 units here with the 3 side up. This would mean that the British is committing 6 units to landing at Kennington Cove. And one might say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, let's try to see it from the French point of view, because the French will deploy his units now after the British has declared his landing zones. So, of course, from the French point of view, this is what he sees. All he sees are 2 blocks here at Kennington Cove, 2 at Flat Point, and 2 at White Point. So, is there 6 there, and 4 there, and 2 there? He has no idea. He's got an idea that they're trying maybe 3 simultaneous landings. Is there going to be British troops in each spot, or they are going to go to 1? He doesn't know. So based on that, he'll be deploying his forces to take on the British that way. Then when the reveal comes, of course, he'll find out that, well, they didn't land there. And whoop, they didn't land there either. So he's got out of place 8 units. And then here at Kennington Cove, he would have 4 units to the British landing 6. So this little subterfuge is a beautiful way of simulating the situation at Louisbourg, and a great opening for the game. So it's the combination of all these special rules, the bombardment rules, the road limits, the secret landing, the objectives, trying to burst into the inner harbor, the taking of the lighthouse point, the island battery, plus the fact that you've got fleets too that want to burst into the harbor. It's all these things that combine to make this a pretty fascinating little game. And of course, I have to mention the cards. When you get the cards and when you play them, these are all going to be critical things that will make this into a dandy little game. I think there's lots of replay value in this. I don't think any 2 games will be exactly the same. There is a solitaire play section, those of you who want to play that way. I'm just fooling around with it now. I'm not even using the solitaire play rules, actually. I'm just trying to play as honestly as I can as a two-player hidden game. And of course, there's your turn track. Like Quebec 1759, you've got 16 turns. The British have 16 turns to take Louisbourg and take the victory. For the French, they have to avoid the British conditions and try to whittle the British down also, much like Quebec 1759 had. For those of you who want to delve deeper into the subject, this book, Louisbourg 1758, Wolfe's First Siege by Osprey, is quite good. It's typical Osprey quality. It's got some great paintings inside, some very good maps, and showing you the troops. So if you want to learn more about Louisbourg, that's a book I can recommend. I guess the definitive work on Louisbourg was written way back, I think in the 40s, maybe 50s. It was called Louisbourg, From Its Foundation to Its Fall. I think the book was by Hugh McClellan. Yeah, I used to own it. I don't have it now. Kind of wish I kept it now. Not to confuse the matter, but that game I mentioned, the one that came out in 1972, Quebec 1759, should not be confused with a later game by Worthington called 1759, Siege of Quebec. I haven't done a review of that game, but that's another very interesting system and a fun introductory game too. Good game to play with your girlfriend or your wife, or if you've got some younger kids that want to learn about history. These are perfectly good introductory games. But I'm anxious to get at Louisbourg 1758, so without further ado, I think that's the end of the video. And thank you for watching.